Thank you for joining us for this next episode of Checked Out, the official podcast of Lancaster Public Library. I'm Theodore.
And I'm Amanda.
And thank you for joining us again. Thank you to everyone who has started their summer reading logs, both for adults and, of course, the children's department has been getting a ton of participants as per usual.
Yeah.
We've talked about our summer reading log. The museum part might have been a little bit of a challenge, we're noticing.
Sorry.
But
We're working on it.
We're working on it. And also, I think the second version of it is out now. Did you put those out yesterday?
Yep.
So, yeah, that one does not have the request of visiting a museum.
So if you want to switch sheets, you can do the second one instead. That's
Exactly.
fine. Or you can do both. Be the overachiever.
Because we want to fill that fishbowl. We put all of them in a fishbowl, and we want that thing filled up. But we appreciate everyone who has come through already. It's been a lot of fun. It was fun to put together as well.
Yeah.
Our section of the episode this week is a little bit shorter because you had a great interview that I just saw with Sue Robinson. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, as I say in that episode too, as soon as we started planning this podcast, we said, okay, we want to do some interviews. Who do we want to have on Checked Out? And Sue was at the top of the list. She is a veteran librarian and knows everything about libraries because she has done everything in libraries.
Literally, yeah.
And she's just the loveliest person too.
She is. She's so lovely, but like she's still got like a little bite to her occasionally. She worked in
We
Philly.
say the Philly comes out.
The Philly comes out, and Philly Sue is one of the funniest people you will ever meet, as well as regular Sue. So it's a great interview. I think you're going to enjoy that. Beyond that, though, I mean, I think we need to talk about what we're reading now.
Yep.
And I guess we can go back to the standard.
The order of things.
And, what are you reading right now, Amanda?
Yeah, so my nonfiction read is Murderland by Caroline Fraser. I'm trying to figure out how to describe this book because it's a lot of different things all woven together. I guess that the basic premise is about serial killers and how a lot of them are from the Pacific Northwest for some reason.
Yeah, big time. Especially in the 70s and 80s.
Exactly, yeah. And, I mean, Bundy's face is on the cover, so obviously,
so
But it's weaving together the story of these killers and also bits of the author's own childhood because she grew up in that area. And then also she's drawing in all of this information about smelting and chemical manufacturing and different industries in that part of the country that were putting pollutants out into the air, into the soil and groundwater. And she's drawing these connections between the poison that was going into people's systems in that time, in that area, and the effect that it has on the human brain and behaviors, and maybe making a connection to these killers that obviously there are a lot of physical and social factors that go into the making of a serial killer, but kind of connecting those dots of maybe there's something more than just inborn brain chemistry going on there.
Yeah, and that's something I've always wondered about because I think I've mentioned this before. My wife loves the podcast Morbid, and so I accidentally hear a lot of it. And that's not the type of podcast where they're going to go into things like this. Yeah. But I've always wondered why so many of these individuals were at the same time in the same place.
Yeah.
And that's honestly fascinating. I'm going to have to check that out.
It's super fascinating. I do like true crime, but it's also teaching me a lot about industry in the area and even the infrastructure connected to it and bridges being built that had high death tolls because they were trying to increase traffic into different parts of, Washington State, but then they weren't planning it carefully. And she's just painting this picture of this like seething pool of chaos and destruction in that area.
That may have led to.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Really,
that actually sounds really interesting.
Yeah, really hard to describe, but really interesting so far.
No, very much so. I mean, it's an incredible era for all the worst reasons. So to at least get like some context, even if she can't necessarily say this was it, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Nice
Yeah.
pick.
And then my fiction read is, and I feel like I've said this every time, but a little bit different for
Yeah.
me. I saw reviews about The Radiant Dark by Alexandra Oliva, and they were intriguing. This
Okay.
is about a family, and it's telling their story from the 1980s through the next few decades, following these family members. At the same time that these pulses of light were seen, it's kind of writing an alternate history. These
Okay.
pulses of light were seen coming from space, and scientists determined that it was intelligent life on another planet sending signals to us trying to communicate. So it's telling this family's story and their personal turmoil
Yeah.
intermingled with this search for meaning and truth in the
Yeah.
universe as we're discovering that we're not alone. Yeah,
That's right up
it's
my alley.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely literary fiction. Not that there isn't a sci-fi element in it, but if you go into it thinking an alien story, this is much more about like complicated mother-child relationships and things. So,
And I feel like that can be the case in a lot of sci-fi, where if you break it down to the root, it might not be something that interests you, but a lot of the times well-written things, and it sounds like this is, will bring in a lot more of like the personal element.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it is nice in a sci-fi-ish book to get a perspective so heavily on
Yeah.
the way people are thinking, especially having it set in an actual real life time period,
Yeah,
just
that's true too.
adjusted to tell
Yeah.
a sci-fi story that they're I don't know, talking about like going over to a friend's house to play Sega or whatever, and
Yes.
then also talking about the aliens sending the beam of light to Earth, and it's just
And it's funny because as nonchalant as you said that, I feel like it literally would be that nonchalant now. Like I could see in the 80s it would be it would be complete pandemonium. But it's almost like people are so desensitized now with the 24-hour news cycle. It would just be like,
right,
oh,
yeah,
there's aliens? Oh, okay.
that's true.
Cool.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I didn't even think about that,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's been good so far.
cool.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, cool.
So what are you working on right now?
So I have two as well, and one of them was just kind of unexpected because I actually saw it at a thrift store, and I love trains and I love Japan, which I don't think I've mentioned either of those on here. I adore both of those things. I played train simulators. I modded an Xbox Kinect to actually track my head, so when I look out the window, it's a whole thing. Don't worry about that. So I was at a thrift store and I found this book. It's called Train Japan. It's by Steve Wide and Michelle McIntosh. It's actually a travel book. So it's literally like
All the
the
trains
lines.
you can. Wow.
However, the big reason I wanted to look at it was not because I'm going to Japan soon, although, I mean, it'd be nice, but it's very expensive, is because there are in the beginning and actually in the start of each line a little bit of history, a little bit of information on those lines, beautiful pictures throughout, even of like the food you can eat in the general areas. And I just found that fascinating. I don't know if literally anyone else is going to find that fascinating, but I've been enjoying it. And there's a really cool part in the beginning, specifically before they get into the lines, that talks about like the future of rail over there, because they're definitely always very much ahead of the curve and on time. And she talks about these electromagnetic trains, which like are essentially levitating. And they're actually talking about launching one of them in 2028, so like around the corner. And so they're not on tracks, and so they can go much faster. And what they're working on now is going like 603 miles per hour. It's very specific. I don't know why 603, but yeah, isn't that incredible?
Who's gonna volunteer for the test
Me.
rides?
I would get on that immediately.
Glad we added another librarian to the team. Because if you ever
Exactly.
take a trip to Japan, I'll be
That's true.
worried.
That's true. So, and then like also some of the new tech that I'm not as excited about, but there's a lot of robots now apparently at some of the larger stations. So there are robots behind some of the booths for ticketing. So if you have like any questions about where to go in the station or where your line starts, there are just like the cleaning robots, like kind of cuter Roombas because it is Japan. But then she describes these terrifying humanoid robots that, again, are only in a station in Tokyo, I believe, right now, that are out there like fixing tracks. So those aren't like mass launched, but they're testing things like that. And I found that fascinating. There's also a Pokemon train, which I think I've mentioned that I love Pokemon. But they're themed trains, which I found very interesting. A lot of the times only run on like weekends and holidays because they're like kind of for kids and just a thing to see. They're not long lines that are taking you across the country. And then, of course, a whole section on like their customs and stuff. You don't use the phone on the train. You don't talk on the phone. You don't have loud conversations with your passenger. It sounds like heaven. It is where I belong. And I am loving this so far. I'm loving hearing about all the lines. Like I said, the pictures are fantastic. I'll put this in the description, but also maybe just some books set in Japan. Because I don't think everyone wants to read this.
You know, honestly, before we started recording, you were like, I have to keep you from looking at this because you're going to laugh at me when I share it. But that sounds really interesting, Theodore.
It's cool.
That's the best type of travel literature,
Yeah.
that it's giving you a peek into not just like the umbrella, the culture,
Yeah.
but the coolest thing about travel is finding those really specific local things and then obsessing about how cool they are
Yeah,
in another
exactly.
place.
No,
Yeah.
and they are there because I mean it's very different even from some other extremely developed countries in terms of their railways. Like they just seem to always be ahead of the curve with new technology and things like that. They're trying to go fully green, like fully carbon neutral by 2050, and they're actually on pace, which is insane. So there's good information in there if you're just reading it for fun. I will say, as a travel guide, there's not a map of the entire railway system for all of Japan. It shows you maps of each individual line. I can't see how this would be useful if you were actually traveling. Yeah. But it's interesting. The pictures are pretty. So, yeah, check it out. The other one is actually short stories again, oddly enough, and partly because our boss recommended a specific short story to me. So this is The Unreal and the Real. It is by Ursula K. Le Guin, one of my favorite authors, but I've never actually read any of her short stories. And this is a tome, as you can see, because some of her short stories aren't so short. There are stories in here that are 50 pages, 60 pages, borderline a novella. And one of them that I read quite a few though, were The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas.
Okay.
Have you read this?
I love that short
never
story,
read it.
but if you're not prepared for it, then it will like wreck you. It is so intense.
So I agree and don't agree. I agree because the moral dilemma that is posed in it is essentially it's a utopia. They have this brilliant, beautiful society. Everything goes perfectly to the point where like when she's describing them, she's like, you know, if they sound like goody goodies, you can throw in an orgy if you would like to make them more edgy. And that's where I think things turn for me of it not being as sad as it should be. The actual dilemma is that there's one child who is singled out, who is in a basement and essentially is tortured and just lives in a constant state of hell for their entire life. And that keeps the utopia afloat, essentially. And the reason why it's titled what it is because some people can't handle it as they get older and they walk away and they never come back. It's her writing for me, which is kind of consistent throughout most of her work, where even with really heavy subjects, she does that kind of like that like offhanded whimsy, like with the comment about their society being really goody-goody and almost like just kind of taking it less seriously than you would expect for subject matter like this.
Yeah.
So it's heavy. It's definitely like, it gives you a lot to think about, but just once again, I love her writing because I love how she can handle even really heavy topics with a light hand sometimes. Another one that I liked out of here that I'll just pull out was 9 Lives. And that is kind of your bog standard sci-fi mining expedition, except that the two people who are there to check out this new planet to see if there are like some rare minerals to mine, they are then sent a crew to do further work on the planet to get ready for the mining. And it's a crew of 10 clones of one brilliant scientist who died young. They're all cloned from the same person, 5 men, 5 women. And what I really liked about it was that it was a good observation again. Like, I feel like that's what she's always really good at, like the social dilemma of these individuals being almost perfect in every way because they were born and bred to do this task and only this task, but their social skills only work within that group. And when there's an accident and 9 of them die and there's one left over, this person, like, he has no idea how to connect with the other 2 members of the crew or the crew that he's going to be shipped to next, which is a crew of clones. And it kind of does a good job of bringing up the topic of like social isolation, but again, in a very unreal way, which I think the best sci-fi and horror, that's what they do. They bring up things that you fear like internally, but wrapped up in this. And I really enjoyed that. It got gross at times, as Ursula tends to do. Like even their more intimate relationships are only with each other, even though they're all the same clone. And she describes them for some reason. But it's very, very interesting. At least like the moral dilemma, the social dilemma is really interesting. And I mean, everyone knows Ursula. If you haven't read her stuff. She's brilliant.
I'm going to have to check that out. As a short story lover, I can't believe that I didn't realize how many she had published.
I didn't either.
I'm going to have to look at that.
Especially when you look at how much she has done with like her, like the Earthsea stuff for children, and then all of her adult sci-fi. I did not realize that she was like.
Can you say prolific? Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. So yeah, she's brilliant.
Sounds great.
It was fun. It was a good read. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
So I think that is mostly all we have for this week. Although summer reading is creeping up on us, the end of it.
Yeah, the 15th of August will be the last day to turn in your summer reading sheets for all age groups. So we're about at the halfway point now. Mark that on your calendar as we're recording. We're at the halfway point.
When this is out next week, we'll be a little bit past
but yeah.
So bring those slips back. Bring the slips back.
All right.
Cool. Yeah. All right.
So make sure that you check back in to Checked Out for Sue's episode. But until then, see you, everyone.
See you. Thanks.